Hey guys, Bike here, and I'm back again with another Last Epoch build guide video. This one is for the Paladin. This is Tyranni's Electrify Javelin build. Is that how you would say that? Well, we're using Tyranni's spear. It's basically, do you want to be Zeus? And if you clicked on the video and you're like, yes, I want to be Zeus, welcome to the build guide. So yeah, we're playing Paladin. We're using the Tyranni's Bident, and we're building into Electrify, and we are just raining lightning bolts from the sky down on the unsuspecting poor enemies. We've killed Aberoth. We've cleared 750 corruption. We could probably go even more, but at this point it's just about survivability, and I feel like 750 corruption is just fine. As you guys can tell with the gameplay that's going on, this is 750 corruption. But before I get too far ahead of myself, thank you so much for clicking on the video. Consider leaving a like, possibly even subscribing if you like Last Epoch content. April 2nd, it's going to be here soon, and if you like Sentinels, I do a lot of Sentinel build guides. But before we keep going any further, in the description down below is a planner, is a loot filter, is a link to a build guide that inspired me to do this one. So if you are interested in all of those things, description down below. Thank you so much for clicking on the video. Let's continue. So I saw a build pop up on my YouTube timeline from I don't know. It was posted a couple months ago. It was by SnowWiz. Somebody I recognize. I don't think I've seen them streaming, but they've stopped by my stream before. So shout out to SnowWiz. And they had done an Electrify Javelin build with Tyranni's Bident. And I was inspired to do that. So I took what they did. I modified it to what suited my taste, and I went off with it, and I've had a great time. This build is fantastic. It's been frustrating. You guys might have seen some of my shorts floating around. I'll zoink an enemy. I'll fail a slam. Yeah, this build is giving me lots of highs and lows trying to hit some of these slams. But for the most part, you can get off to the races pretty early on with even low gear. One thing I'd like to mention is, as we get closer to April 2nd, I'm sure on everybody's minds is the Sentinel rework. And we know that Volatile Reversal is getting changed. As you guys can tell in this footage, I am using Volatile Reversal. I did test it, and we'll go over this again in the skills and gear section. I did test it. Abyssal Echos, which was covered by Dread in a recent video. I love Abyssal Echos, and I was glad to see that Dread was experimenting with it as well. Abyssal Echos can be used for this build to good effect. I personally didn't like messing around with the mana management, and on top of it, the muscle memory. I have a lot of muscle. I have a lot of muscle. I have a lot of muscle memory when it comes to Volatile Reversal. So personally, I'm still using Volatile Reversal. If you're playing this build before the Season 2 launch, I would recommend using Volatile Reversal. But I understand if you don't like the skill or you want to use something else so you don't get too used to Volatile Reversal, Abyssal Echos will work. That is my recommendation. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and check out some bosses. This is Raye. Raye is getting kind of shredded here, and yeah. He can still kill us. He can still kill us, but we shred pretty well with this build. And let's go to the Harbinger. Same story. Like, he can kill us for sure. Like we can't just stand there. Like, the sustain on this build is okay, but the damage is insane. Harbinger's gone. Let's go to Aberoth. There we go. I mean, we didn't shred Aberoth that fast, but nonetheless, like, if you are interested in just watching pure gameplay, all sorts of stuff like that, there will be a link in the description down below to a showcase that I typically upload with these builds. It's something I've been doing recently, and I've enjoyed it, and I think you guys have liked that as well. So without me yapping and all that, there is a link to a showcase in the description down below. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the game. All right, here we are in game. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show a quick little DPS check that I ran. So what I do is I attack the dummy for a minute straight, and we just keep hailing on it. This is an uninterrupted DPS check with a little stopwatch. I'm still trying to get used to that program. It's called Life Split or something. Very basic on my part, but nonetheless, we attacked the dummy for a minute straight, and we were able to get the health of the dummy down to 82% within that time. For reference, I'm starting to include this more in my build guides. For reference, previous builds that I've put out, such as Machine Gun Smite. Machine Gun Smite was like an 89. The Lightning Smite was like an 86. This is an 82. Bleed Hammers was around an 83, 82 as well. So just to gauge the damage on this build can be very insane. Using Volatile Reversal. So when I didn't use Volatile Reversal, I don't have a recording of it, but when I used Abyssal Echos, just to kind of showcase the amount of damage, we were doing an 82 with Volatile. When we used Abyssal Echos, it's hard to tell. The reason why is Abyssal Echos just takes so much mana. And it's hard when you're just sitting here attacking this straight. And I found I did more damage without Abyssal Echos, just sitting here attacking using no abilities, than I did with Abyssal Echos for a minute straight. But this is not a perfect test. This is certainly not a perfect test, because for most things, like, you're not going to be just standing here going yeehaw. You're like, most enemies are not just going to stand there and let you just hit them over and over again like that. But even without like Abyssal Echos or Volatile Reversal, we're already chipping away at the health of this dummy pretty well. Like, we already took it down to a 98% in like the 10 seconds I was attacking. You start mixing in your Volatile Reversals, your Sigils, your Holy Aura. Like, you can get a lot of boom out of it for sure. I'm gonna leave this as is, but yes, Abyssal Echos. Let me just showcase a quick little thing if you guys want to use that. 1 point, 4 points, 1 point, 1 point, 1 point, 3 points. You can even put another point here, and then I like to do 5 and 5 right here, just so it spreads out. But you'll get most of the damage right here. That is what I recommend if you want to use Abyssal Echos. Use it sparingly. Save it for the big guys. I even do that for Volatile Reversal. I don't know if you guys saw in the footage, but for the most part, I could just run around and just be like tag, 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 tag. Maybe even go tag, tag again without using Volatile Reversal. And then once we saw a big guy like this guy, right? Once you saw it, then I would use Volatile Reversal, or in this case, you can use Abyssal Echos. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the gear. So we're using a Leonine's helm for this one. Throw whatever you want on here. Try and get reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes. I've had this one sitting around. It gives a little bit of mana. It gives strength. The strength, I believe, helps boost the Javelin ability, and then the attunement helps boost the smite. You don't need to do this. You can just pick one or the other. I would lean strength, or better yet, go for health. Get yourself a T6, T7% health. That's what I would do. But yeah, get yourself a Leonine's. You could go for critical strike avoidance, like on your reins or your belt, and then take the blessing. Or you could also, if you're willing to spend the points, put like 8 points, 6 to 8 points right here, and then take the blessing from this timeline. I know we're kind of jumping around. You could take the blessing here. I would not recommend that. You're going to want this chance to bleed, but you could do that, especially if you're just getting started, right? You're looking for that gear. The one thing you need for this build is a Tyranni's Bident, in my opinion. You need a Tyranni's Bident to get going. You don't even need a Titan Heart. You don't need a Razor Fall. You don't need a Tome of Elements. Having some sort of sustain would help, so you could take like a Bleeding Heart, which for sure you don't necessarily need a Nihilist, but we'll go over that as we go on. Nonetheless, I would recommend a Leonine's with like 84, 85% reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes. All right, let's talk about Tyranni's. the key feature of the build. So it gives us flat lightning damage with Javelin. It converts Javelin to lightning. It converts 100% of bleed and ignite chance to electrify for Javelin. It gives us a massive, especially if you can get a roll like what I got right here, 160% lightning pin with electrify. Gives us base lightning pin, and then on top of it, when you use Javelin, you gain a stack of Tyranni's Thunder for 4 seconds. Each stack grants 11 spell lightning damage. So what this does, when you're hitting enemies with Javelin, so especially if you can get the attack speed of Javelin up really high while still being able to sustain your mana, you can get a ton of spell lightning damage. That's a nice bonus, but we're focusing on the Electrify. So this is a nice thing right here. I would recommend throwing on T7 Ignite and then whatever else for your T5 slot. I went for lightning damage. You could throw on Bleed Chance for even more chance to apply Electrify, seeing that they are being converted to the Bleed and Ignite are being converted to Electrify for Javelin. The thing is, I know we're jumping ahead again. This node right here converts all Ignite to Electrify for Smite. It doesn't convert Bleed. So the reason why I don't like putting Bleed Chance on Tyrannies is only the Javelin's going to be converted. Now the Javelin is a big source of us applying Electrify. Nonetheless, I figured boost the damage of everything by a bit by putting on percent lightning damage. All right, there we go. So Titan Heart. I do recommend Titan Heart for this slot. You got a couple different options. I had this one sitting around. Strength and health is not too bad. You could also just go for health. Tier 7 health, T6 health, flat health, whatever amount of health. Just all the health you want. But the strength is not too bad, because it helps boost our armor. We only got 4,944 armor with this build right now. So the strength is a good pickup for Titan Heart because base armor is not that high. But I do recommend Titan Heart for the build because we're using a two-handed weapon and we get that 15% less damage taken while wielding a two-handed melee weapon. This is a melee weapon. Even though we're using it in a throwing thing, it's a two-handed weapon. All right, Copper Ring. You don't necessarily need it. Use whatever base you want, whatever suits your fancy. Originally, just to, if you guys have been following the live streams, I was trying to do like some sort of crit build with Tyrannies first, trying to do crit and Electrify. I ultimately just left that behind. But I still had this ring, and this ring was kind of, I don't want to say critical, but yeah, let's face it was kind of critical. I needed the physical resistance, I needed the poison resistance, and then it was a T7 throwing damage and throwing attack mana cost and throwing attack speed, T5. I'll let you guys in on a tip. Unless you can get T7 throwing attack speed, I don't know if I would recommend T6. Here's why. T5 throwing attack speed caps out at 23%. T6 caps out at 30% throwing attack speed. Whereas T7 throwing attack damage caps out at -5 to the mana cost and up to 26 throwing damage. T5 throwing damage caps out at 13 and only -3. So 23% throwing attack speed versus 30%, or throwing attack damage and minus mana costs. It's up to you. I feel like if you're going to go for the throwing attack speed, make it a T7 in my opinion, just because now that's a double digit increase at the upper end over a T5. Nonetheless, moving on. So yeah, use a Copper Ring if you want. Orion Sun Seal. I think I would recommend Orion Sun Seal. Actually, yeah, of course. What am I saying? I do recommend Orion Sunseal, especially if you can get these two modifiers on there. Throwing damage and throwing attack speed. +2 to Sigils of Hope. Really nice. 10 seconds to Sigils of Hope duration. Healing effectiveness, whatever. The increased armor is very nice. And then every 10 seconds, if you are above half mana, you cast Sigils of Hope and consume whatever the mana cost is. That a percentage of the mana cost. That's fine. This is just a nice to have. You don't necessarily need this. I think that's what I was trying to say. I do recommend Orion Sunseal, especially if you can get throwing attack speed and throwing damage on there, but only if you can get those two affixes. Otherwise, I just use whatever ring you want. Use whatever ring you want. Try and get throwing attack speed on there, and you're off to the races. Though, with the way I do have it set up, you might be better off with 2 T7 throwing damage. I was greedy for the throwing attack speed, but if you guys can tell, I'm not really able to sustain this. I just happen to have enough mana in place that I'll be fine. Plus, on top of it, most of the time you're not just standing here just hosing down a single target. You're doing this, right? You know, you're doing this. You're not just standing there the entire time hosing down a single target for 25 seconds to a minute, right? So this is fine, but if you want more flexibility, like let's say you don't have a lot of mana regen, these minus throwing attack mana costs affixes, the T7s are really going to do you a world of favor, a world of good. There we go. That's the word. All right, we're using Eternal Gauntlets. So with the way the build is set up right now, this is our only source of mitigation against dots because we're not using Oracle Amulet. So, yeah, I also had to have this one pull double duty. So I got T7 throwing attack speed on here. I was able to get some elemental resistance. The attunement is whatever. I was able to get hybrid health. I needed this to give me frailty. I needed frailty on my gear somewhere. I was able to put it on my gear. If you have your resistances taken care of, throw on more health. The armor shred, I wouldn't worry about it. You can just take... You could take 2 of these right here, 2 of these idols, and you're good. We'll go over that in the idol section. But yes, I would recommend throwing attack speed and then either strength, attunement, or you could do throwing damage. It's okay. Throwing damage is okay. Yeah, strength, attunement, throwing damage, one of those, throwing attack speed. You could also opt for damage over time or mana. Attunement kind of pulls double duty in that regard. Obviously, there's only a tier 4, but yeah, go for the throwing attack speed. Try and seal frailty and then hybrid health, and then the rest is up to you guys. Let's talk about this belt. We were able to get elemental damage over time, mana regen, cooldown recovery speed, which is okay. We don't really need it for the build that much. The main cooldowns are the Holy Aura and the Volatile Reversal. Volatile, we are kind of spamming a little bit, but I mean, for the most part, if you're not using Volatile Reversal and you're using something like Abyssal Echos, you're probably lightly using that because of the mana cost. So cooldown recovery is whatever, but it's fine. I would probably prefer flat health, but we were able to get this pretty nice T7 health. And we were able to get cleanse. Now, the noble base with the mana, that's okay. You probably want a Praetorian build just for that extra armor. Or if you're really having a hard time making up for your poison resistance, like I threw poison resistance on this ring, but you could go for a Spider Silk belt. Nonetheless, the noble base is not too bad because it gives us mana. Mana's all right. We're not scaling it, but yeah, so use whatever belt you want. Praetorian for the armor or Spider Silk for the resistances. And the rest is up to you. I do recommend mana regen for sure. And health and cleanse. Elemental damage over time as well. Might as well go for it. We already went over Orion's Razorfall. So this actually was kind of a popular short, I think. Yeah, I was like, give me movement speed on Razorfall. Movement speed on Razorfall. Movement speed. Yeah. A live recreation. So this does a bunch of good things for us. It gives us armor, gives us movement speed on the implicit. I would hope so, being a pair of boots. And increased effective haste on us. 37 is not bad. Split the difference between 24 and 50. We do proc haste through our skills. I was able to get a max T7 movement speed on here to go with the already movement speed that comes with it. What I was really going for was the +2 to throwing attacks. That's why I'm doing this. That way, this is why we have 28 points in Javelin. Well, not specifically because of this, but yeah. Razorfall, I do recommend. I feel like it is best in slot for this build, but let's go over some other options. Foot of the Mountain would probably be next up. You guys probably know what Foot of the Mountain is, but let's go ahead and take a look at it. So Foot of the Mountain would be next up, just because it's going to be giving us minus mana cost. Here, I'll fix whatever we lose. This one also has health, so, and gives us +11 to all attributes. So if you don't have a Razorfall, it is kind of rare, or you can't get movement speed on there. That's fine. Just use a Foot of the Mountain. As you can tell, I now no longer have any problem with mana. There's no problem with mana anymore. So, yeah. Foot of the Mountain could be for you. This is actually might be easier to get a Foot of the Mountain than it is a Razorfall. If that's the case, go for Foot of the Mountain. Or you can go for Citadel Boots. Like, let's say your Leonines doesn't have the best reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes. You could run Citadel Boots for to make up for that. You can run the Citadel Boots to make up for any deficit there. Yeah, so I do recommend Razorfall, but Foot of the Mountain is a strong contender. All right, moving on. Tome of Elements. So here's what I think the best setup for this build would be. Code of an Erased. So yeah, check this out. Oh, I might as well. I'm sorry. I'm so unprepared here. We're almost through this. Yeah. Eat your heart out. Pick whichever one you want, right? You know, here's a couple examples. So, here's what I think the best look for the build would be. Code of an Erased Sentinel with pluses to Javelin. I got super lucky with +4 to Smite. So if I wanted to do a build where I focus more on the Smite aspect, I would use this relic. Nonetheless, I think Code of an Erased Sentinel in this slot right here with +4 to Javelin and +2 to Smite. I mean, I know that's super hard to ask for with this type of relic. And then you run a Bleeding Heart instead of Nihilus, slammed with T7 health or health and stun avoidance, or if you need to, chance to apply frailty, that's also a good pickup. So this will be your main sustain. You'll have Code of the Erased Sentinel, which will also be giving you a +1 to all of your abilities. So yeah, we'll be missing out on the +2. Have that here. Hopefully you can get like some mana regen or something like that, or if you're using the Foot of the Mountain instead of Razorfall. But yeah, I would recommend using a Code of the Erased instead of this. But let's go ahead and talk about this real quick. So Tome of Elements, easy to find with 2 or 3 LP. It gives us a couple different things. It gives us a chance to shock on hit, which is very good because shock shreds shreds lightning resistance. On top of that, we're able to leech 2% of elemental damage. So It's low. The leech is low, but this gives us a way to leech, so I could use something instead of Bleeding Heart in this slot. And I chose Nihilus. So with Nihilus, 9% increased health, 4% increased mana, 4% increased movement speed. Very nice. +2 to all skills, slammed it with T6 health. 19 up to 50% increased mana regen, +2 to all skills, 11% more armor, 7% to all resistances, and you get basically Frenzy on Demand. FOD, Frenzy on Demand. We gain Frenzy, roll, attack. Roll, attack. Frenzy on Demand. That's what Nihilus provides. Again, Bleeding Heart would give us throw and attack speed, which is just, you know, a nice little lift to go with that, as well as health leech. You can get 2, 3 LP Bleeding Hearts. 2 LP is very common. 3 LP is not as common as it used to be, but you can still get them. All right, guys. I believe that is the gear. Let me double check everything because I've missed this stuff before. Yeah. Okay. That is the gear. Let's go ahead and talk about the idols. So the way we're proccing Smite, right? Oh yeah, let's fix this real quick. There we go. So the way we're proccing Smite's being procced off our throwing attacks, and we're using these keen idols. We're using 3 of them. I would say 4 is overkill. 3 will be just fine. So I would recommend 2 of them to be chance to shred armor. Even though we're doing Electrify damage primarily, we're still doing a lot of hit damage with Javelin. So I do recommend at least enough to where you have 100% shred with armor. And that's what you get out of here. And then on top of that, a nice little bit of health. I mean, that's like what? That's a T5 health right there that you just get on your gear, flat health. Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's great. So with this level of smite proccing, you can tell if you guys didn't know, not everybody's aware of it. It was highly well, I'm not gonna say highly controversial, but it was a tad bit controversial when they made this change, because what everybody used to do is they used to use the hammers that would spiral around you. You would run into enemies and it would be proccing smite everywhere. Thing is, these idols only at the high end used to give you a 9% chance to proc smite when you hit with a throwing attack, but there was no cap, right? No cap, right? No cap on how many smites you can proc. There's now a cap. It's not stated here in the idol, I think, even if I hold down what it does. No, there doesn't seem to be anything. So there's now a cap of no more than 10 smites per 2 seconds, or 5 smites per second, but it's really 10 smites per second, because here's why. You might notice, bam, there was all the smites, and then they're gone, and then they're all back, and then they're gone, and then they're all back. This is just enough to where we can reliably proc it, but we're not just like wasting time, you know. And the more enemies you're attacking, that's obviously more hits against enemies, which means more chances of proc smite. Right, more hits per second means more chances of proc. As you can see, we're going. I'm hitting all the procs. So I think, you know, you might even be fine with 2, but I do think 3 is nice just as a nice backup, especially if you're going against a single target. I think 3 is fine. I don't recommend 4, and for everything else, use that to make up for any lack of resistances, right? You can get these little small idols for poison, necrotic, and whatever else you're lacking. There you go. That is the idols. Let's go ahead and talk about the blessings real quick. So I was getting kind of poor there for a half second. So I decided to use the gold drop rate. I should also probably point out I'm Circle of Fortune. It was probably pretty obvious when I was hovering over all my gear, the Circle of Fortune tag, but nonetheless, there you go. I am Circle of Fortune. So let's get back to this. So I chose the gold the gold blessing, but take whatever you want. Uniques are fine. Experience for a little bit more favor is fine. That's fine. Ring drop rate, I think that's a good pickup. One-handed sword, you'd probably want a spear idle spear blessing, but nonetheless, this is kind of a holdover from when I was doing the self-cast lightning build. Take whatever you want. Prefix shard drop rate, take whatever you want. We're doing the endurance blessing here. We'll talk about that in a moment. Class specific shard drop rate, I recommend that, but you could take whatever you want. Whoa. I've never noticed that before. The whole background moving when I move my mouse. That's kind of weird. I was like, oh no, I'm losing it. Okay. Let's talk about what you really want. So, chance to ignite on hit. I do recommend this one. That way, so what you could choose if you're really lacking on the leech department, instead of chance to ignite on hit, you could take leech. You could take the spell leech or the throw and attack damage leech. That would be your main things to use to help sustain you. But if you got enough sustain, like let's say you're using a Tome of Elements or a Bleeding Heart, take chance to ignite on hit. It gets converted by both Smite and Javelin to apply more Electrify. Ending the Storm, I took chance to shred lightning resistance on hit. You could take mana. You could also take chance to shock on hit. I'm sure there's diminishing returns by having shock, lightning pin, and chance to shred lightning on hit, but I thought it was cool. I'm just thinking 3 different forms of shred and pen. I went with that, but there's probably diminishing returns. Let's be honest. Nonetheless, I went with that. Take what you want. Chance to bleed on hit. I highly recommend this one because it gets converted by Javelin. But if you need the defenses, by all means, take the critical strike avoidance or take the Resol. Those like resistance first. This is just pure damage. But again, I would highly recommend this one. Spirits of Fire. So you got a couple different choices here. Armor, endurance, or chance to apply frailty. I recommend the armor if you can't take care of the endurance, but there's just so many good nodes that you can pick up on your gear. It's just so many good things you could pick up on your gear, but if you couldn't do endurance and endurance on both of your rings, like let's say you're not using Orions here, I would recommend throwing damage, throwing attack speed. If you can do endurance health, then do the same thing over here, endurance health. That should be enough endurance to where you don't need to take this blessing, but what am I trying to say here? But if it's just too much to ask for, just take the endurance blessing and then try to put frailty somewhere. Frailty is a big defensive layer for sure. If you need it, take chance to apply frailty here. But yeah, try and get chance to apply frailty on your gear. Try to get endurance on your gear and take armor. There we go. Long-winded explanation. Percent armor, best in slot, and there we go. Let's go ahead and talk about the skills. So I'm going to try and run through this. So take 5 points in Shelter from the Storm. This gives us endurance and elemental resistance. This is a nice backup cleanse as well as 20% poison resistance. Go over here. Make sure you get at least 3 points in Expedite because you want that chance to get haste. That 9% chance to get haste, you know. You do that, run. It's a lot better with hammers, but this helps when we're traveling through echoes. Ignite chance, you know, we convert it, and then attack speed. Let's talk about Javelin. So 5 points in Mighty Delivery. We get the damage and the attack speed. We're not really looking for the armor shred. We're trying to get down to excellent balance. Because we want that -9 mana cost, because as you can tell, we still are spending 6 mana per throw. 4 points in burning strength for 100% ignite chance for Javelin. And then Spirit of the Thigh, Javelin deals more damage over time, 100%. 100% damage over time increase. Very nice, and it's multiplicative. Siege Barrage, you now throw a Javelin into the air, costing 3 Javelins to rain down from the sky. This adds 12 mana cost. And then we take 2 points in Spike Bombardment, which increases the mana cost by 50%. So this becomes an 18 mana cost. That's why I was saying, if you're having trouble with mana, just run 2 of these, because it's a multiplicative bonus. Let me show you. It's a multiplicative bonus. Let me show you. Tell me we got a tier 5. No, that's not it. Come on. Here we go. Okay, so we're gonna, let's talk about this for a quick second. You could use a Quicksilver Ring if you want, but that's beyond the point. So, this right here gives us -5 throw and attack mana cost. So, if you remember before, this was 6, right? But now it's 3. We've only minused it by 2 more, right? -3, -5. We've minus 2 more from the throw and attack. This should cost 4. This should cost 4, but it costs 3. Why? Why does it cost 3? The reason being, this is a multiplicative bonus. So whatever your mana cost is, it's increasing it by 50%. So if you can reduce the base cost further, right, by using this and your rings, when you take these nodes, the mana cost will be less. Now, if you have less mana cost, yeah, okay. I think I've made my point. So yeah, it can be good. It can be good for sure. Yeah, I said we were going to be trying to speed through this. Sorry. So 1 point and go for the legs. 3 points in Forceful Hurl. The more we stand still, the more lightning pin we get. 90% lightning pin if we stand still for up to 2.5 seconds. And then 1 point in Strategic Patience. Javelin deals more damage, but it has less attack speed. I was personally on the fence about this because of the minus attack speed. Ultimately, I felt the damage increase was worth it. The damage increase was worth it compared to what I was doing before. But you don't have to take this if you're struggling with throw and attack speed. Nonetheless, I do think this is one that you'd want to pick up. All right, let's talk about Volatile Reversal real quick. Obviously, this is getting changed. If you're seeing this build today and you're trying to farm for stuff, you can only play a couple hours a week. You might want to skip on this build because of this node. Or, like I said, do the Abyssal Echos. So let's talk about this real quick. Pretty much a generic setup for the cooldown recovery, but we're taking 3 points in Time Rifts and 3 points in Harbinger of Dust. Because what this does, this increases the damage they take. They just as a whole, the damage they take. This right here increases the damage over time they take. So this can stack on top of each other. This increases just whatever damage gets thrown at them. This increases damage over time, which would be the Electrify. And then I put 2 points into Warp Time for attack speed. Let's talk about sigils real quick. I have to fix this. There we go. So I have a +2 to sigils here on this node. I would recommend +2 to smite. Get the +4 to javelin health, +2 to smite. We got sigils. Oh well. You don't need that, but if you're going to have 26 points in sigils, let's go over what that might look like. So I opted to have 5 sigils. Sorry. I opted to have 5 sigils, and I put 5 points in empowering sigils for 25% damage per sigil. So if we have 5 sigils, 125% damage. And burning sign. Sigils grant you and your allies a chance to ignite enemies 30% per sigil. 30 times 5, that's 150. 150% increase to ignite when you have all 5 sigils. So having this ring, which also gives us a +2 to sigils, nice, helps us just maintain having these sigils up, which is a nice overall damage increase. Then we increase the duration, all that good stuff. All right, let's talk about this. So I was originally not taking Sacrifice and Atonement, and I was putting points over here for this 20% attack speed and more points into Holy Fire. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I found that we just did way more damage with the Sacrifice and Atonement instead of putting points over here. So this is the setup I recommend. If you have any extra points, right? So if we had that +2 to Smite instead of that +2 to Sigils, we can put extra points into Holy Fire nonetheless. 2 points in a Blinding Flash, 10 points down here for Sacrifice and Atonement. If you don't need, if your sustain is good enough, you could take a couple points out of here and put it over here. I would not recommend. I don't want to accidentally kill ourselves, especially if you're using Nihilus. You roll, you lose health. So I don't recommend it, but you could. 2 points in the Piety just to get down to Order of Lagan. 1 point here to convert the damage of Smite to Lightning and Electrify. And Ignite gets converted to Electrify. 1 point in Unbalanced Scales. This helps spread the love with Smite. And then 5 points in Charge Hand, Lightning Pin with Electrify, and Electrify duration applied by Smite. So you might be thinking, hey, let's put more points into Electrify instead of Holy Fire. You get more Electrify chance out of this Holy Fire node that now that it's been converted than you would out of points into here. So I'd recommend points into Holy Fire first. All right, that is the skills. Okay, we're doing okay. We're doing okay. Let's go ahead and talk about the passive tree. I'm long-winded anyway. Oh well. 8 points into Juggernaut, 2 points into Fearless, 5 points into Armor Clad for 10% damage reduction from nearby enemies, and then 5 points into Valiant Charge. I recommend this for the 30 health, but also even though like I have lunge on my hotbar because we're proccing Smite with Javelin, so I don't need to have Smite right here. So yes, this is a movement ability and we can benefit from that, but also Volatile Reversal is considered a movement ability as well. So this is a nice little 30% cooldown reduction for Volatile Reversal. Let's talk about this real quick. 10 points into Abyssal Endurance. I don't take the 1 point in Void Corruption just because I'm not trying to focus on crits. I just needed the resistances. Paladin, I put 8 points in Conviction, 5 points in Defiance just for resistances. 10 points into Valor for health. 7 points into Holy Icon for health and necrotic resistance. 1 point into Faith Armor for crit strike avoidance. For armor and crit strike avoidance, I was trying to get over here to Prayer Aegis to put 1 point. And then 8 points into Penance for throwing bleed chance, 120%. So I didn't mess around with Redemption. Excuse me real quick. I didn't mess around with Redemption at all just because I didn't really mess around with it because I just figured we'd be converting all the bleed chance. I mean, as I can tell right here, it doesn't look like I've received any stacks of bleed from Penance chance to bleed. Oh, when we're hit. Oh, okay. So it's going to be impossible to tell. Nonetheless, I didn't really mess around with this, but you can if you want. I would highly recommend putting the points over here, though. 12 points into Reverence of Duality. I recommend this for the 24% increased health, mana, and in damage, but you could take 6 points out of Reverence of Duality and put it into Light of Raye for more movement speed and increased lightning damage. 5 points into Weapon Master. It gives us a nice little base crit chance for Spear if you guys did want to mess around with that crit chance on Spear. Unflinching for health and stun avoidance. 5 points into Guardian in the Forge Guard tree. I forgot to mention that. 5 points in Guardian for health. And then 10 points into Smelter's Might for bleed and ignite chance. And it's doubled with a two-handed weapon. So that's 140% bleed chance, 140% ignite chance. And it all gets converted by Tyrannies. All right, guys, thank you so much for clicking on the video. Remember, links in the description down below for what you're looking for. Thank you for sticking through with me to the end. I know I'm long-winded, but this is just the way I am. And thank you so much for sticking with me. And I look forward to season 2. Anyway, you guys take care. Peace out.